All right, Brandon, how you doing?
Hey, it's good to see you, Randy. How you doing?
Excellent, thanks. Good to be seen for sure.
Yes, it is.
Everybody watching along, welcome to episode 64 of our Tech Sales Insights episode, brought to you each week by Sales Community. So if you want to learn more, sell more, go check out Sales Community. So we're honored to have Brandon Sweeney, who is CRO of HashiCorp. So making sure I say that correctly. And we are sponsored by Sales Impact Academy. Sales Impact Academy is the world's leading go-to-market learning platform, providing continuous live learning solutions for high-growth technology companies. And I've been involved with them in a terrific platform with basically the best experts in the world teaching you several different segments and departments and learning. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But most importantly, Brandon, so we actually never officially worked, I guess, at the same company, but I've got fond memories, I believe, from my days at Sun and then especially at HP. You're at VMware. We're doing a bunch of joint go-to-market. And it was always probably tricky for you on the VMware side because VMware was kind of like Switzerland and kind of had to play nice with everybody. So hopefully we got our unfair share advantage, but always found them to be obviously very ethical, very professional. Was always a fan of the channel. We'll talk about the channel a little bit later, where kind of we do some joint go-to-market programs there. Great family, Boston person as well. So. Definitely look forward to the next 55 minutes or so that we have here, Brandon.
Yeah, I love it, Randy. I always enjoyed our time together. Learned a lot working with you and building a go-to-market with HP and just scaling. Learned a lot and always enjoyed our time. And we got a chance to spend a little bit of time at a couple of partner events and got to know each other a little bit better. So go Boston, and just nice to reconnect with you.
Awesome. Yeah, we need to get some more of that face-to-face. I mean, back in the day, right, VMworld pre all these other companies coming on the scene, that was pretty much the go-to place to be seen, right? And
it was a great opportunity to get together as a community, right? And so those were good days.
Tech leader space for sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? You've actually done pretty well, not really jumping around and being able to hold jobs pretty well. A lot of people end up, for various reasons, moving along. So I just was thinking about that here.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Hopefully, I've done some good work to help some people along the way. So I started my career at IBM right out of school up at Bowdoin in Maine, and selling a bunch of hardware, quite frankly, back in the heyday for IBM. And then moved out to San Francisco just to get a little bit of exposure to something outside of the Northeast, and fell in love with San Francisco. I'd always wanted to go to business school, so after 7 years at IBM, went to business school. Had a little bit of an investment banking stage in my career. That was late 90s, where a lot of people were doing that, did that at Morgan Stanley, but decided I actually much preferred being an operator. So I kind of packed up and went to the West Coast at a small startup and called Allegis, where I spent a couple years, learned a ton, learned a lot, didn't make really any money, but learned a lot and met a bunch of great people. And then we can talk more about how that led to VMware and then HashiCorp.
Awesome. And you're VMware for 16 years, right?
Yeah, it was a long time. A good friend introduced me to Diane Green. I joined VMware around employee 200 plus or minus, and it turns out Diane Green had started the women's hockey team at the University of Vermont. I played hockey.
I know Diane. I did not know that.
Yeah, no, she's what an impressive leader. She got a naval architecture degree from MIT, PhD from West Coast. She was a world-class windsurfer and women's hockey. And we connected over that. She asked me a couple of questions. She said, I'm going to hire you as an athlete, meaning you can do a bunch of stuff for us. And so my first job was working with actually Compact at the time, flying to Houston all the time and convincing them to use this hypervisor thing from VMware. And that turned into quite an opportunity to leverage to build scale and drive some standardization of the VMware stack at the time. And then had a bunch of other jobs, moved into running the channel for the Americas, built our Asia partner business as well, then ran the commercial business in the US, then commercial partner, and a bunch of other things. Then got asked to run our worldwide Dell relationship when Michael bought the company, run our worldwide commercial business. Yeah. Then my last job was our worldwide cloud business before I left and came to HashiCorp.
Well, so you actually had VMware private, then EMC,
Yeah,
and then
EMC,
Dell.
absolutely. Yeah, working closely with Billy and team and what have you, and that was a big accelerant for the VMware business to work closely with EMC, and obviously Joe did a great job of saying, "Hey, look, I want VMware to be a standalone business as it builds an ecosystem." The Switzerland comment you'd made earlier, and I think that was quite insightful of Joe. If I could from afar, and it really helped scale the business and became a big ecosystem play. And that's why I deeply believe in the ecosystem and the power of the ecosystem to scale infrastructure businesses. Because if you drive standardization through that ecosystem, you can then monetize for a long, long time.
Wow, that's great. And then how'd you get to HashiCorp?
Well, these things kind of work, right? A recruiter calls you and says, "Hey, go talk to this person." There are a couple of recruiters that really matter in the Bay Area. And so I got told to show up. And I met Dave McJanet, and again, I love VMware. I loved my time at VMware, but he was building, probably the next, what I hope is next great infrastructure company, and it just seemed very compelling to me where I was in my career arc. I got a lot of help from good people at VMware along the way. Carl always helped me and pushed me on new jobs, and Maurizio and Pat and Diane and Raghu, and at the end of the day, this was an opportunity to help build a nascent business. And what compelled me for HashiCorp is it is a multi-cloud hybrid cloud world, much like VMware, standardized a layer on top of x86. That same thing is happening here because every customer has multiple clouds, private and public, inside their enterprise, and someone needs to help drive that orchestration, right? And so, hence, HashiCorp is on that mission.
Wow, that's great. So we have from Chuck Smith.
Chuck Smith. Yeah, a great guy. Yeah.
Times. Good to hear from Brandon.
Hey, Chuck, nice to see you. Great memories of spending quality time, and always appreciate your help. And we always had great conversations to get to a good outcome for both our companies. So nice to see you, Chuck.
There you go, Chuck. Hopefully you're watching from the slopes. We'll see. So maybe tell us a little bit more on HashiCorp. Kind of who do you sell to? The ideal customer profile, kind of on that go-to-market side.
Yeah, sure. So HashiCorp here, we're ultimately here to help provision, secure, connect, and run all your apps wherever they are. And ultimately, open source is a key differentiator for us. We are very fortunate to have hundreds of millions of downloads every year across our stack. And so that community of developers is deeply important to us. And then they work on a migration, if you will, up to our enterprise solutions across all of our stack. The wonderful thing about HashiCorp, it is a multi-product business. And so whereas VMware early was vSphere, the great thing is kind of same stage of evolution. We're fortunate enough to be a multi-product business, which gives us tremendous opportunity to upsell and cross-sell, which I know you and I will talk about regarding net dollar expansion as a key driver of the business. But our real focus is to land our enterprise solutions in the G2000. Right. And we are laser focused on that. We are a direct led selling motion with partner assist, building out a ton of capability across our partner ecosystem, very broad to help us. Equally, we are building a velocity cloud business in the commercial or corporate segment. So again, laser focused on Fortune 2000, and then obviously making sure we work closely with those next emerging customers around the world that will be Fortune 2000 companies in the future.
Gotcha. Great. And so at the kind of G2K type accounts, what's the kind of executive decision maker? Is it a CTO, CIO?
Yeah, where we spend a lot of time, obviously, if you really get tactical on where we want to end up, it's with the platform team, where they're making decisions around architecture and how to scale the business. And we spend a lot of time there proving out our technology and helping those teams help offer their shared service, leveraging our technology out to all the different groups within that enterprise. But if you talk about where the deals ultimately come together as deal size starts to scale up, it really does get to CTO, CIO, whoever leads overall tech or digital transformation. That's typically where we end up when we talk about a broad deployment of the HashiCorp stack across the business. That's where, because of the multi-product nature, we end up having to get to demonstrate and prove value to these customers.
Oh, so you're not quite kind of a PLG motion like VMware was in the early days, but you're kind of those platform people are kind of lower in the organization. So you need to kind of build up your, I guess, fans and support structure, and then from there, then go higher in the org from a sales perspective.
Yeah, the great comment on PLG. So we have a wonderful PLG machine that just keeps getting better and better, right? And ultimately, that's how you drive cost of sales leverage, right? And operating leverage is that machine. And so we have that machinery because we're really lucky that, again, a lot of folks don't know who HashiCorp is, but they know our products Terraform, they know Vault, and the open source community, which is incredibly important to us. But to your point, we help move them on a migration ultimately from free product to self-serve, to some sort of monthly contract if they so choose, to an annualized contract, to a consumption contract, to an ELA type contract vehicle, if you will, with all the services you would expect at a Fortune 2000 company.
Oh, that's great. And you're coming up on your 2-year anniversary, right?
Yeah, I actually, February 1st, I was lucky enough to join HashiCorp. And so 2 years in and still chugging along and still lots to do, and feel very fortunate to be here and help build this team.
And you realize I think the average CRO tenure is about 16, 17 months. So you're
all right. Well,
you're way above average.
I'm above average. So that's, it's nice to finally in life to be above average in something, Randy, right? So maybe this is it. So we'll see.
There you go. And I know it's the quiet period and you're public, so you got to be careful what you say, but so I won't ask about any numbers, of course, but kind of going from that private phase to the public phase. Can you talk a little bit about that from a CRO perspective?
Yeah, I mean, what an exciting opportunity. The founders and the early employees did such a phenomenal job building a nice platform here. We were lucky enough to go public in early December. But I think when I think about my accountabilities or my duty to the business, it's certainly the breadth of key metrics and building visibility into 3, 4, 5 quarters out is certainly important muscle memory to provide predictable visibility, and that's our duty, is to make the number consistently and predictably, right? Because everything else hangs off that from an OpEx model. And so it's really been interesting to try to put all those pieces together. And I've really enjoyed figuring out how to orchestrate that, get people on what really matters, right? There are only 3 or 4 things that really do, and helping the team see that. Well, equally, because we remain high growth or hyper growth, it's really important to attract and retain top talent to build the machine. Because when it really gets down to it, it's really ramp time times productivity, right? And if you do that right, you can probably maybe stay above that 18-month threshold we just talked about.
There you go. Well, you're way above it, and obviously doing well given the success. So for those watching along or listening along, feel free to post any comments and certainly any questions at all, and we will do our best to get to them. We've got Tucker behind the scenes, we are always forever grateful to helping us with all those logistics as well. So feel free to ask any questions or post anything there as well. So we have for our title, building a NDE net dollar expansion machine. So maybe for those that don't know, can you just kind of explain what that is, and then tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a really important topic. When I step back and think about my accountabilities, I want to help us build to be $1 billion business over a time horizon. And there are 5 or 6 things that has to happen, that must go right to make that happen. And one of those things is building a world-class net dollar expansion machine. And the real simple translation there is once you've landed a customer, a net new customer, how much more do they buy from you? Either of that same product, upsell, or effectively cross-sell from the rest of your portfolio. And again, as I said, the thing that really attracted me to HashiCorp, besides this incredible community, right, where the tech is everywhere, is the fact that we're multi-product. So again, unique to HashiCorp is, how do I build a machine so we help customers, one, derive significant value from their first interaction with us. If we do a great job with the first product they buy, get them seeing value, chances are they're going to buy more of our product because we have a broad portfolio. And so getting that orchestration right from pre-sales all the way through to on-time renewals with a high net dollar expansion rate, that makes the machine go. And that means we can help a lot of customers. So getting that gearing right, getting the KPIs, getting the unique identifiers, how every person in that value chain delivers value, not stacked on top of everybody, but unique to their role, right? Get the swim lanes right. That's what we endeavor to do, and we're very focused on.
Wow, it's great. Very, very impressive. So we actually have a question from Chuck as he's getting ready to go skiing next week. Can Brandon speak to HashiCorp Geo Expansion? Is it a priority? And then how are you as a CRO thinking about it?
Yeah, great. And one of the things I learned about building a business is you've got to have a balanced business on multiple dimensions, right? And that can be from a segment perspective, that can be from a route to market perspective, product perspective, geo perspective, right? And so at the end of the day, I am clearly over-indexing the envelope towards building our international business for a bunch of reasons. One, those G2K customers, they are not just based in the US, they're all around the world. And they have divisions or lines of business all around the world. And their development teams are all around the world. So getting the footprint right to build a scalable business outside the US is critically important to us. And so if you checked me on where we've deployed the envelope, it is over-indexed outside of the US very intentionally. And I just did see, at VMware, the Europe business for multiple years was tightly run and really did buffer the overall business. So I would love to follow that same playbook here.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Chuck. And for others that want to ask any questions or post anything, feel free. So we're talking about on the recruiting side, kind of retaining and attracting. So if I'm a recruit and we're in the elevator, kind of what's your pitch?
Yeah, I mean, what I want to build is I want to build the best place for earlier in career folks, coming right out of undergrad or earlier in career, the best place to come build your sales skills and your technical skills. And so one of the things I'm really, really proud of is that last summer we had 12 summer interns for us. And this summer we're going to almost triple that. We'll have just about 30 this year based in Austin for a 3-month cycle. And we are going to build a market leading machine to help recruit great talent, help them onboard and learn more about selling, which is a great craft, and also build our technical skills. And I really do believe this is the foundation of building a scalable model, because that talent comes on board, we help skill them up, right? And then we can export that talent as they're ready and when they're ready across the business and whatever they choose to do. The other great thing is it's a wonderful way to recruit diverse talent, right? Broadly defined. And so we are laser focused on making sure that our teams reflect the world in terms of the diversity, again, broadly defined. And it is a wonderful way to attract new talent and different talent to add to the overall conversation.
That's great. And so for the interns that are coming up for this summer, do you still have openings?
Yeah, we still have some spots, actually. So please hit HashiCorp.com and you can figure out what's out there. But happy to help. I am very passionate about building a great place for great talent to want to come work and learn. As IBM sent me out to San Francisco many, many years ago, it really opened up my aperture to the Bay Area and the startup world. And I really would love to provide that type of insight and perspective to folks. And it's a great way to build a wonderful career.
Fantastic. Then I assume there's similar value if you talked about kind of earlier stage, younger folks, and not allowed to use the age, but and I assume over for more experienced folks that there's still great motivations and great experience and growth path into management and other opportunities.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Randy. Obviously, the war for talent, we're all trying to find great talent, and I think the value prop here is hyper growth company with currency out there, which is an important thing. As well as a great opportunity to grow and skill up your growth curve around leadership and first line, second line, third line. As we grow and add hundreds of folks, we're going to add a lot this year across all disciplines, across the spectrum: pre-sales, post-sales, reps, managers, renewals, partner, you name it. It really is a great opportunity. And, if you're growing, that's a great problem to have, and it provides great mobility for people. And equally, we're going to start a HashiCorp leadership program across worldwide field ops because I want to make sure we're preparing our leaders. And my duty is to build a succession plan across all of the elements of the business. And we are laser focused on that. So we want to help people grow their careers and learn from their perspectives and help us get big.
Awesome. You mentioned war on talent, and coincidentally, for any of the, I'll say CROs or executives watching, we have an invite-only session titled "The War on Talent" that we're doing on Thursday with the Alexander Group, who I know you'll talk about in a little bit. But if you've not been invited and want to attend, just send me a private note. We have a question from Bill Rowan. Brandon, can you speak to how this growth process has been when most of this has been remotely for customers versus when we're all face to face, as you mentioned, VMworld?
Yeah, I know. And hey, Bill, nice to see your name, and I hope you're doing just great. So the remote world for all of us has certainly been challenging. The interesting thing was HashiCorp was a remote first company pre-COVID.
Really?
And so this was something for me to certainly adjust to with the corporate headquarters in San Francisco. That was, not a significant set of folk or big set of folk. And so it was a little bit different than what I had grown up with over at VMware, with locations, obviously a bunch of EMC, et cetera, around the world. So it has been interesting to kind of adjust, but then I got there and 3 weeks later, COVID hit. So there already was kind of a natural motion on a remote first kind of point of view. And it was a great way to attract wonderful talent, particularly R&D talent in the open source community around the world, and to really, appeal to that. And then now we've all had to snap to that being our normal motion. And we have really had to do a lot of work, like many companies have, to figure out how to engage with our customers in a different way. And also, candidly, for I'm sure everyone on this call, how do you engage with your teams when you can't, a lot of folks enjoy being together. And so
Right.
we've done a lot of work on that, but it has been an adjustment for me personally as we try to figure out how to engage with our reps, and equally with our customers, and how we define and deliver value. The great thing is, I do think we've all learned more and more of how we transact and interact can probably be done on Zoom more. And so hopefully that's the way the world continues to evolve.
Oh, great. Any tips or tricks in terms of best practices that you've done on engagement with either internally or externally?
Yeah, we have very much of a written culture, which I know a lot of other big tech companies have, and it really has been it's really been something the teams have tried to focus on, because it's a better way to have more contribute and make the Zoom time more interactive. The other thing that we've done is, I think, and some other companies have done this as well, is offering mental health days to our teams where everyone just shuts down. I think the reality is we're always on. And given that, besides our work, we have a lot of other things going on in life as you're supporting families or, parents or younger folk or whatever your thing is, trying to be respectful of giving time back, free time where people can focus on themselves. We've tried to strike a balance of being a quarterly driven business with offering that type of support and time away as needed.
Well, that's great. And you're talking a little bit ago on the diversity best practice around kind of really leveraging that intern program, which is great. Any other kind of best practices that you're doing on the diversity side?
Yeah, we've used a couple external firms that are laser focused on doing just that, and I'll make sure, Randy, to pass this on to you once I talk to a couple of these firms, because they've done a great job where they've either focused on the veteran community or the LGBTQ community, or just other folks, other diversity groups that we've really wanted to add to, obviously on a broad definition of gender. And so I think being laser focused on that, we've really pressed the teams. We've done a lot of the work, as I'm sure many have, around unconscious bias, where we all have something we can learn, and it's it's important to understand that words really do matter, particularly for different generations. I think we have to be well aware of that, and we really have tried to make sure we update our interview processes so they are more neutral, if you will. in terms of how our recs look, and do we have a diverse pool of interview folk. And we have really stayed true to, we ask you to come in and do a panel presentation for us. And again, that's been a great way to continue to keep the quality of interaction with the candidates quite high.
Oh, that's great. So moving on here, maybe talk a little bit about the importance and difference. So you've seen it evolve on the sales ops side and revenue ops side.
Yeah, we're really lucky. Great Rev Ops leader, Mike Ogden, who did some great things at VMware and then did a lot of great work over at Palo Alto Networks, has been here. And I give him a ton of credit. He has transformed this business for us from end to end, from deal desk to enablement and productivity to order management to sales strategy, compensation. And we've really built out his team in terms of revenue operations. So we have the right ops capacity across the functions. So again, inside customer success, inside services. We've really built out some talent, and we've built an analytics group leveraging Costa Rica. And we really are laser focused on trying to leverage cost as appropriate. The talent that you can recruit and attract in Costa Rica or India is or elsewhere is world class, and it really gives you some operating leverage and also helps you attract some new folks to the business. But we've really spent a lot of time on that side, on the human capital, and then on the infrastructure side, as we all have our tech stacks, I think we're pretty well aligned on that. But we've really invested heavily in that infrastructure stack to help drive productivity, because again, it all comes back to, as Frank Slootman says, right? Rep ramp times productivity. That's the punchline, right? And how can we drive that across the teams?
Gotcha. And before we talk about your tech stack, we have a question from Sam. Brandon, have you ever had to bail any of your SDRs out of LinkedIn jail for automation?
Oh, I'm not sorry. I totally get the question, but I'm not aware of having to bail anybody out thus far.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it goes to some of the rules that LinkedIn has that you can kind of.
Oh, too much LinkedIn leverage. Okay. Thank you, Randy.
Sure.
I guess from my first answer, I'm not really aware that we have, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone else in the org has. Is probably the right answer.
There you go. And if they haven't, that means they're not pushing hard enough.
That's you're ahead of me, but that's where my head went. But I was behind you, Randy, because you are absolutely smarter than I am.
I don't know about that, but anyway, Sam, great, appreciate it. And maybe while we're talking about the SDR side, but I think you've got BDRs, SDRs, ISRs. Maybe talk about the importance of that function.
Yeah, I mean, this comes back to the talent creation and also just operating leverage and productivity, and then PLG. If you really think about it, the job of the CRO is to manage the top line with the bottom line that's always improving, and putting the forethought into how do you build the framework around your organization as the PLG and product kind of, if you will, catches up. The more you can do in product around helping customers self-identify when they're on track or off track, or get better leverage on, hey, I need some help, and doing this digitally for us with hundreds of millions of downloads right over our history, that's incredibly important. Equally, leveraging SDRs to help drive productivity or help better support our development communities and act really as community advocates to help. All I care about is customers having a good experience with our tech. If they have a good experience, then we're going to monetize them over time as they start that journey. So it all starts with the open source, but the leverage from ISRs, SDRs, et cetera, very, very important to us. We're building centers in Austin, Singapore, and Amsterdam. We'll add more as you can't be single threaded, obviously, in Asia and Europe. And so we got to think about time zones. But again, this is a very important community for us.
Oh, that's great. So getting back to some of the sales tools that you use, can you tell us about some?
Yeah, so Salesforce, as you would expect, Clary for us, and that's an important tool as we look to get better visibility. There are a lot of great startups out there that are doing some good things as well that we're learning more about, Boost AI, et cetera. So doing some good things there. We are very focused on our friends at Gong did a nice rollout of Gong for our corporate segment, if you will. And you could just see the returns and the insights. And it took a little while for people to get this, but then what you're doing is you're building a catalog of best practices of customer engagement or objection handling. And so now when we onboard new reps, we have basically a tight library of best practices that we can share with those reps to hear how you answer questions, hear what a great discovery call looks like. And it's not just really trying to track people. Are you making your phone calls? It really comes down to the quality piece and the engagement. So we've done a lot of work there in the corporate segment. Equally, the wonderful thing about Gong, not to do, besides the great ads at the Super Bowl, right, is we've really used it as a tool to share voice of the customer back with our product teams. So, sales folks are always saying, hey, R&D, if you just gave me more product, right? And R&D is always saying, hey, if you just sold more, what's on the truck?
Or give me more feedback.
Yeah, exactly. But now, let's give you some feedback. Here's voice of customer, their voice, right? And then here's how we've said, these are the challenges that we're hearing, right? And so let's feed that back into the machine based on feature prioritization, but also how do we help customers in their journey, right, to drive better adoption? And these are where you pick up, a bunch of feedback, and you get the N big enough, the number of an amount of feedback, and that helps inform making changes to sales process, to product plans, and et cetera. So Gong. So anyway, long answer, but Gong is, as you can tell, an important stack, and we're just starting to roll that out for the enterprise business here in the Americas.
Gotcha. And they're a sponsor of Sales Community, so we love them. And another sponsor of Sales Community, I believe you use as well, is DecisionLink on the value selling side of things.
Yeah, that was actually the first. I think the first PO I signed when I got here was DecisionLink, because I ultimately believe, as we transition from selling technical features, which are very important, right, to outcome-based selling. Being able to capture that and drive that in a standardized format consistently across all of our teams. And, we have a relatively high, rep to other resources surrounding that rep, if you will, and really make sure we're capturing all that feedback from customers. DecisionLink helps us do that in a very systematic way. And it ultimately helps us better deliver our vision of the outcomes we can deliver to customers.
Oh, that's great. And another sponsor, Sales Community, is Alexander Group.
Yeah, my good friend Ted, right? And so I literally just did an interview for AGI earlier today, and here's where I've seen a ton of value from them. They helped me a lot when I was accountable for worldwide segmentation and the framework at VMware, and really laying down, hey, when you put lines in a pyramid, you get results, right? Because you get some focus above and below that line. They helped us do that in a very standardized way, which I think is still in effect at VMware. And then they've helped us a ton here at HashiCorp around compensation modeling, and just really having an honest conversation of the outcomes we're trying to drive, and to drive alignment across different stakeholders, and also benchmarking us on, hey, how are we really doing against others, high grower SaaS companies, so we can plan accordingly so that the envelope, as we all talk about, is optimized correctly.
Oh, that's great. And as I mentioned before, we have a invite-only Zoom. So any leaders that are on that didn't get an invite, if you want to invite, let me know. It's going to be Thursday East, 1 and 4 p.m. And then on the sales engagement side, we spoke about some things you have going on there. I don't know if you want to say it on air or not.
Sales engagement. Oh, I'm still. I gotta look that one up.
Yeah, no, that's the. I think that's the
work ramp.
The answer. I'm just trying to be careful here. That's, I think you got kind of SalesLoft and Outreach.
Oh yeah, so we've got SalesLoft. We're using SalesLoft today, correct? And so important tool for us, and we're always looking to make sure we improve there.
Gotcha. Great. And any others that you want to mention? Or
yeah, WorkRamp has been big for us in terms of an LMS system to help our teams better access information and data. We use Zoom Info, and then we just signed our PO with Salesforce for Quip. So a big focus area for me, given the multi-product nature of our business, is account planning and doing that consistently as we penetrate Fortune 2000, et cetera. So I look forward to the day when we have that deployed.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing though. You go back 5 years ago and you had, Salesforce and LinkedIn were kind of earth shattering, but now you take a look at all these tools that really allow you, the old days was, you can kind of look in the rearview mirror and kind of, where you've been, but to try and have anything going forward to say, where am I going, what's going on and everything else, just all these tools are just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the one I was going to say that I think we're starting to leverage more is Gainsight. And so at the end of the day, insight into how a customer is leveraging our tech. The moment of truth, that the one thing I care most about, the one thing is when a customer buys our tech, right? Do we deliver on that first promise of a business outcome we said we would deliver as part of the pre-sales process? Has that happened? And if that has happened, and to me, that's like, how do I get customers on a path to consumption? If they start consuming based on that first use case, then they're going to renew at a high rate, and they're going to buy more of that initial use case. And then they're going to buy more from use cases for that same product, additional use cases. Then they're even going to buy more products with additional use cases. Yeah. So that to me is the trick.
So to put words in your mouth, kind of by having that focus on the customer success side, that's a key ingredient to continuing to improve your net dollar expansion machine.
1,000%, Randy. I really do think the revenue leaders who will have the most predictable businesses, again, based on whatever your operating model is if you've got a PLG business, right, which helps you get leverage on your cost of sales on the pre-sales side, right, and then you have a really wonderful customer experience through pre-sales through to that moment of truth of saying, hey, did that vendor, did HashiCorp deliver the outcome they said they would? You do that right, and you can get some extraordinary leverage. And again, net dollar expansion is probably one of the 2 or 3 most important things that the financial community looks at, because it really gives you insight into the health of your customer base and the future forward buying potential of your business. And again, if you can acquire $100 million of ARR at a reasonable cost point, but you're going to renew that in the high 90s, and it's going to expand in the 120s and up, then you just do the math. That's a good model.
Great
right?
Model.
That's a good model. And so then trying to get all those pieces to work together to drive that outcome on predictable top line is important. But what I have certainly found is focusing on delivering value to the customer, voice of customer, is something. When you're growing fast, you spend a lot of time on internal stuff, but the stuff that really matters is how's that customer experience going? And I've tried to stay really focused on that.
Oh, that's great. And I'll just put in another plug for Sales Impact Academy. So maybe some of your SDRs should look at, or some of your leaders.
Yeah.
This is kind of a cheat sheet that I use when I talk to people, but basically has a bunch of different categories across management, leadership, sales and prospecting, marketing, customer success. So lots of examples. But if you take the whole kind of PLG concept, Mark Roberge is kind of the godfather of that. Not that he's age-wise the godfather, but as an example, he's the one that teaches the class on PLG. So they've got kind of similar experts across other categories. So for those that are not familiar with Sales Impact Academy, go check them out. And you can go also to salescommunity.com, and on our the public site, you can click on any of these sponsor companies as well, and that provides you a link to get right in there as well.
Yeah, on the impact. So I totally. We actually have a search going on right now for a worldwide corporate leader for that corporate segment. And again, what I'm looking for is, to your exact point, someone who understands PLG from self-serve, right? From that community of free users through self-serve, right? Where people start to self-identify, and then you start building in the right motions in your product, right? And then you get great cost leverage. And so it sounds like Sales Impact Academy would be a good thing for me to check out as well.
Yeah, definitely. Great. And then when we're off the air, there's somebody I forgot to mention to you for that role potentially.
Oh, okay,
that
great.
We both know, but
great.
I won't say it on the air. So you talk about customer success. So that's certainly evolved a lot over the years, as has a lot of these tools. But what about talking about the evolution of the sales function from what was VP of Sales, CRO, how you've seen marketing evolve?
Yeah, and I that's a really good question. And I think one of the things that was interesting to me coming here after what I hope was a good 16 years at VMware was the opportunity to grow my knowledge around owning customer success and services. I've really enjoyed that just for my own kind of intellectual growth, if you will, putting those pieces together and just how foundational getting pre-sales in that motion right is to capturing those value business outcomes you want for the customer in the pre-sales customer success plan, how you hand that off right without dipping over to customer success, and then how do you really maintain focus on driving net dollar expansion off of those use cases and an on-time renewal, and putting that machinery together, both the infrastructure, doing enablement to the different personas, right? We have dedicated folks in our enablement team for different groups within that machinery, our technical community, our renewals community, our CSM community, like really making sure they're great and you don't see any drop balls on handoffs from each group on that journey. I've really spent a lot of time on that. And I think that is the future state of the CRO role, is to really drive that integration across all those knobs, if you will, in a consistent manner that, again, fits inside your OpEx envelope. So I've personally enjoyed that. I think that's where folks need to go. And I think the CRO function is becoming more operational in nature by definition, and getting that gearing and instrumentation on what really matters, I think, is how you create predictability and consistency versus just, hey, let's go get that big deal. Like that kind of has to happen, right? But everything else really matters.
Gotcha. And then similarly, I would imagine the importance of marketing and kind of how you're making sure that you've got, complete alignment and, for lack of better words, that you're bought in, that the OpEx that they're spending is being used wisely.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate. We've got a really strong marketing leader who is super technical and very operationally tight. And again, it's there's no question the secret sauce at HashiCorp is taking advantage of our development community and the open source, and getting that gearing right on how we move customers through that motion from, hey, they use the open source, through that journey and automating that, and really being laser focused on how we drive a return and how we follow up on PQLs, right? How we follow up on MQLs. That interlock with that leader, that's a third of the battle, right? Is you got to get that part right, and then everything else should fuel from there. And if you spend the right time on the front end, you get operating leverage on the back end.
Right.
So a full agreement with your comment.
Absolutely. Do you want to give him or her a shout out by name?
Oh, Mark Holmes, superstar Mark Holmes.
There you go.
Absolutely right. He and I have, I think, developed a good open rapport on how we've got to get the teams thinking. And likewise, it's also been a little bit of a journey to get our geo leaders to also think about, hey, it's not just, pipeline driven by reps or partners. It's also pipeline from the marketing machine, and how to make sure we drive a broad view of all sources of pipeline and the conversion of that pipe.
Oh, that's great. And I just saw there's somebody, I don't see a name. It says LinkedIn user said, please add me to the invite for Thursday for the Alexander Group session. So if you just want to ping me privately or just kind of put what your name is there, happy to take care of that. So moving on here. So from the pandemic, there's I'll say the common sense observations, and sounds like you're already work from home anyway, which is great. But any other kind of observations or things that maybe how you've evolved in terms of thinking or leading differently?
Yeah, a great question. I think carving out time just to really check in with people away from the buzz of Zoom. Zoom can certainly be exhausting if you're on it 12 hours a day. And so I've personally tried to do more one-on-ones, just walking around the block, if you will. I think we've also tried to be more empathetic on work-life balance. And, I'm certainly not exactly where I should be, but I think we're trying to do that more. And particularly as the pandemic has stretched out, as I said, these mental health days and making that more the norm. And I think, that has certainly been a challenge. The other thing I think we've learned, and if I'm thinking about our engagement survey that we just finished for the last quarter, was how do we help give visibility to different folks on career progression and personal development plans. And I think it is such a hot time to be in the market's looking for a lot of talent, and people can move around a lot. I do think just in general, as people get more time by themselves or at their homes or what have you, I do think it's really important to continue to reinforce the value prop that your company presents to this individual as they grow their careers in a much more systematic way, because they're getting hit just like we all are with lots of phone calls, right? And so I think the constant reinforcement of, hey, look, the value prop here, we are post-public, but the reality is, not many folks go from, 100 million to a billion, and to actually go through and see what that can be like. You can monetize that in many ways throughout your career. And you get a lot of experiences. And again, growth is a great problem. So a little bit off track from your first question, Randy, but I do think that's important as we help folks adjust to the new world and reinforce constantly why, we love having them and we want to give them a great experience.
Yeah, that's great. And Tucker, maybe you can chime in here, but on one of my newsletters, I forgot which one it was, but I have a free newsletter that you can, if you go to salescommunity.com, you can click at the top, and it's, I think, just called free newsletter. But anyway, a couple weeks ago, I had a submission that I did on just kind of performance management. And I think that's kind of a lost art. And a lot of times people say, what my philosophy is until they find if you want to agree or disagree. But a lot of times people focus on the bottom performers. And I would argue you get even more leverage by focusing on the top performers and forcing them to kind of having that open discussion. And I'll often say, if it's a employee to a manager, employee may say, geez, well, my manager's not giving me feedback. Well, it's also, your fault, or the onus is on you as well. So kind of force that discussion to say, whether it's a rep to a manager or it's you to the CEO saying, hey, what feedback do you have for me? What can I do different or better? And I had submitted something that's, something of a template that I'd used over the years, but kind of forcing people to kind of do a self-assessment across all the different subjective and objective areas. And then from that comes out, hey, here's the top 5 or 10 things to work on to improve, and what can I do to help you to improve? But really kind of forcing that discussion. And then likewise, lastly, having it be that the manager also should be taking feedback to say, hey, what can I do different or better? What's your philosophy?
No, I always tell people, you own your own career, right? You make a decision every day where you want to go and where you want to show up and invest your talents. And so equally, I think we as managers owe candid feedback, right? Feedback is a gift. I get a lot of unsolicited feedback in my personal life from my wife and kids and my mom. And so there's a lot of that going on, but I think it is a gift. I do 1,000% agree with the leverage you get from your top performers, and it's all about moving the middle, right? And can we move that middle 80%? You've seen the math. If you do that by a few points, you double your business, right? And so we truly have invested very heavily. Our sales productivity and enablement leader pretty much gets whatever she wants, and she's a superstar in terms of building out that machinery to help our reps ramp more quickly. Because again, full circle, right? Rep ramp times productivity. But people should own their own careers. I think we owe a duty back to them to give candid feedback in a structured way. And I also think it's important for top talent in particular, as you do, succession planning or scaling around promotions, is make sure you help give a 360 review of that person and how they're perceived from other functions, right? Not just the sales function, because you really start to you learn a lot about people. And hey, how do you treat the support teams? Right? How do you treat the marketing teams? How do you treat finance? And that really being well-rounded and giving that full picture can really help people, think about how they are experienced and how they show up. Because a lot of times when you're growing your career, as you get to be a senior leader, you're supposed to know what to do. It's really how you do it. So the how matters more than the what.
Yep. I had just a little stupid example, but Claudia, I can't remember last name. She was in HR at Sun, and she gave me some great feedback once. And this is, I was running North America, so I was, already, far along in my career. And she said, Randy, if you're talking to people and you're standing above them and not at eye level, they're not listening to anything that you say, because they just see, okay, here's this large bald man over me. And so, that was just, and I was so thankful. Yeah. And then I went and asked people afterwards, oh yeah. I'm like, well, why the heck wouldn't you have told me that before? So then, then I would consciously always try and get then kind of to be at least at eye level, where we're all kind of running around in that face-to-face world. So, just one example of, terrific feedback that I got that, helped me and the team.
No, and little things you didn't know, right? Like I got the feedback. Sometimes I'm too eager or too fast to respond. When someone asks a question, just pause.
Yep.
Take a couple seconds, at least fake that you're absorbing the question, versus rushing to respond right away.
Yeah.
And so, little things, and just like, obviously you're towering over many people, Randy, right? But to your point, you never would have thought, right? And so that's just, how do I get to be a better leader and take some EQ and show some EQ and maybe get better, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, anybody that knows me, I'm a cupcake, right? But then you think, okay, there's this persona. I'm like, what are you talking about, me? Like, but anyway.
Yeah, no, well said. Well said. I appreciate that.
And then Tucker put in our private chat here, and maybe you can put in the LinkedIn post too. But the performance management newsletter that I did was titled "Give and Get Feedback," and it was January 27th. So if anybody wants to go check that out, feel free. So we are just about at the end here. It's been fantastic, Brandon. Thank you so much. What about any trends going forward that you might forecast?
Well, I guess first and foremost, it is a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud world. So I guess there's a trend. I think, as we talked about for CROs and the evolution to being much more operationally focused, I think PLG, people talk a lot about it. I don't think a lot of people do it, but I do think it is certainly a wave of the future. And I do also, at the end of the day, I think from a channel perspective or partner perspective, I think the intersection between GSIs and the CSPs is a huge leverage point in infrastructure that we all need to be trying to figure out how to take advantage of with our partner ecosystem. And other than that, I guess I hope sales community keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I've appreciated the opportunity to spend a little bit of time, Randy, and reconnect with you and the team. And again, thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks. And so Brandon Sweeney, CRO of HashiCorp, been fantastic, and love watching your success, and look forward to continuing to watch the success of HashiCorp. So next week is going to be episode number 65. We have Seth Robbins, who's CRO of Hyper, and his topic is going to be conquering the $0 to $10 million ARR mark. So kind of at the other side of the smaller side, but certainly fast growth. So anyway, so really appreciate it. Thanks. Those at home, please pass the word. We put it on LinkedIn, also YouTube. Ken Grohe hit a new record. We had him last week, and he's just about at 10,000 views on YouTube, on top of a few thousand from LinkedIn Live. So continue to spread the word, and anything that we can do to help, don't hesitate to ask. And have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. Thanks again, Brandon, and thanks Tucker for behind the scenes, and thanks to Sales Impact Academy for sponsoring. Have a good one.